Hi, I'm Gareth Spence and welcome to Tech Talk. Today I'm at Connected Britain, a show focused on the digital infrastructure of the UK. In this episode, we're going to be focusing upon a topic that is very important to service providers, and that's the monitoring of PON networks, something that until now has been very cost prohibitive. To help me with this, I'm joined by Adtran's Daniel Grünbeck. Daniel, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start at the very top. Why are PON networks such an important part of a service provider's infrastructure?
Yeah, good question. PON networks are providing high-speed connectivity to end customers. This is getting more and more important, especially these days where home office, homeschooling and media consumption is increasing.
So, if anything happens to these networks, the stakes are quite high. I guess customers will be very unhappy.
Exactly, and as more customers are connected to PON networks, as more unhappy customers can be there. And with growing PON networks, the time to detect failures is also increasing and is becoming a challenge for operators.
Why are service providers not monitoring these networks if they're so important?
Very good question. PON networks are very cost-sensitive networks because the end customers are directly involved. Monitoring a PON network with conventional OTDR solution using filters or reflectors at each endpoint is costly and thus for the operators not viable.
But from what I hear at the show, Adtran is changing that with its ALM technology. Can you explain what's happening?
Very good question. Let me start from the beginning. So 2015, Adtran launched its fiber monitoring solution, the ALM, and since then we have supplied thousands of units to tier one carriers worldwide. Nowadays, fiber monitoring solutions are not only used in carrier networks, but also in metro and access networks. However, we received feedback from our customers that, as mentioned before, monitoring PON networks with the classic OTDR solutions using filters is not viable and thus not an option. Which is why we went back to the drawing board and developed a feature which we call Deep PON Assurance.
And what does that do?
Deep PON Assurance is a feature which enables operators to monitor their whole PON network from the OLT to the ONT without the need for reflectors or filters.
And as soon as issues arise, a service provider is notified of what's happening?
Exactly. So as soon as an issue on the fiber plant arises, the ALM detects it, locates it, and informs the operator via different channels so he can take immediate action and thus reduce the downtime of the network and make sure end customers are not suffering of long outage times.
And how accurate is the solution?
That's a good question. So what we could prove is that the minimum distance required at the very end of the link, so the minimum distance between the end customers is about 2 meters, which is absolutely remarkable considering that there are no demarcation reflectors or filters used at all.
Okay. Now, one of the hot topics, and you mentioned it earlier, is cost. Is Deep PON Assurance a cost-effective solution?
That's a nice question. So Deep PON Assurance is the most cost-competitive solution currently in the whole industry. It is the solution with the lowest TCO possible. Why? Because demarcation reflectors or filters are eliminated, the need for it. And on the other side, the logistical nightmare to deploy those filters to the end customers is also eliminated. So CAPEX and OPEX are reduced to a bare minimum.
That's great information. Daniel, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.